Hello and welcome to this episode of Filmi Ladies. We are Pitu and Beth, and today we have a wonderful, esteemed guest, the magnificent Sal, whom you may know from our Suchitra Sen episode. Welcome, Sal.
Hi, so glad to be back.
So the reason we wanted to invite Sal for this episode is because we're going to talk about one of our favorite Indian cinema superstars, daughter of South Indian superstar Gemini Ganesan and Pushpavalli, the one and only Bhanurekha Ganesan, aka Rekha.
Yeah.
So the best thing about Rekha, you guys, is that Rekha is like an ice cream shop who just never runs out of amazing flavors. So there is a Rekha for everyone. Most people love Rekha the actor because she's done these amazing like fire performances. A lot of people, including myself, love Rekha the beauty and fashion icon because she's the one who taught us how to do like those weird eyebrows and the beauty spot and the pouting and all of those things. Some people love Rekha the fitness icon who brought, who popularized fitness and yoga via cassettes back in the day. And most of us love Rekha for the gossip that she is. Or rather, she encourages the gossip mongers in us because she's always kept like the tales flowing. So there's lots of reasons to love Rekha, and we're going to get into those today. And in order of sanity to insanity, these are the movies that we have picked. Myself, being the most sane person, I have picked the wonderful Ghar, which stars Rekha and Vinod Mehra. Sal, being the second most sane person, has chosen the wonderful Khubsoorat. And Beth, being extremely insane, has chosen, didn't you choose Khiladiyon ka Khiladi? Well, there you go. So Beth is the insanity defense today. So I'm going to start with you, Sal. Which flavor of Rekha is your favorite Rekha ice cream flavor?
Honestly, this is such a tough question because if you know me on social media, Rekha is actually really identified with me. People will, on my birthday, use Rekha, GIFs, Rekha reaction photos, to wish me. Rekha is like a big part of, my own kind of like history in a way that is familiar to people in my life. Even if they know me slightly, it's something they pick up on. I definitely think of her as one of my, mothers. There's that phrase in Maggie Nelson's The Argonauts, my many gendered mothers. She's one of them for me. She's a key one. She is someone I feel like she's definitely raised me. As I get older, she becomes more and more meaningful to me.
Mm-hmm.
As as a woman who refused to age like she was told to, and that is some like women like that, especially South Asian women, Desi women like that, become more and more meaningful to me as I get older. Because for the longest time, you didn't see that. Now you have, Malaika Arora and all of these beautiful 50-year-olds and 51-year-olds who are, going to the gym and wearing mini skirts and, doing item numbers and all of that stuff are on Instagram, all of that stuff. But for the longest time, that wasn't the case. You had Rakhi at 31, 32, 33. She was playing mother, you know.
Yeah.
And that you had Moushami Chatterjee, who went to those sister-in-law roles so quickly. Wahida Rahman, again, like in her mid-30s, early 40s. That was the trajectory. You went into, that kind of respectable matron space really, really quickly. And Rika resisted that. Even after she started playing the mum roles, the grandmom roles, she did it in her own inimitable Rekha way. So for me, Rekha is almost, she's like beyond, she's beyond celluloid. She's beyond the containment of the 35 millimeters, the silver screen, the TV screen. Um, she to me is someone I feel, this is so corny, but she is to me one of those movie stars, one of those filmy ladies that I really, really feel in my DNA.
Mm,
She's someone I feel in myself. She's someone I feel raised me, So
mhm,
I can't pick because she's mother, so I can't pick a phase.
Sal is like the whole ice cream shop.
Yeah, the whole
yeah,
ice cream shop.
yeah.
But in terms of performance, I think it's often acknowledged that like that period in the early 80s is considered that's considered some of her most fertile cr- um, creative work. Right, she was really coming into her own. She was maybe the most successful heroine in the industry in that period. It was just before Sridevi had come in, and I'm going to be talking about a movie from that period. So I really love watching Rekha from that period because she's just extraordinarily beautiful, assured, and I don't know, there's like the serenity of someone who knows
Mm,
that she is a superstar um,
Mm,
in Rekha from that period. Someone
mm,
who knows that she's arrived at the ball and she's the cynosure of all eyes, that the transformation is complete,
mm,
yeah.
she is the princess now, and it's never gonna things are never gonna go back, nothing's ever gonna change back to the pumpkin and the mice. The transformation is permanent. That's what you really see in the early 80s.
mm,
And it starts with I think that period starts with Ghar, really.
Mm.
mm.
Yeah.
Okay. What about you, Beth? Pick a flavor.
Yeah, so this crystallized for me while Sal was speaking, and it's the flavor of I won't.
Hmm.
I won't do what you think I'm supposed to do. I won't behave the way whichever arms of society are explaining to me. I won't go away.
Hmm.
Um, now I should admit my knowledge of the gossip is, it's cursory at best, and I haven't really dug into it, but I appreciate that she just resists and head held high and does what she wants to do. I kind of wish that she currently had some of the options that Dimple seems to have. Not that I want to deny Dimple, but like I would love for Rekha to show up in the Yashraj spy universe or whatever. But yeah, my flavor of Rekha is that I will do what I want to do and I won't do these other things. So, and I think you can lump a lot under there. So I'm cheating a little
Yeah.
bit, but I was recently at an ice cream shop in Kansas that actually let you choose 5 small scoops of different flavors as a dish. And I was like, that's what I've always wanted from ice cream. And that's
Yeah.
what Rekha gives me all the time. So yeah, I mean, I'm kind of with Sal. It's quite impossible to choose.
Yeah. I think for me, I would pick like Rekha for me is like a sparkly unicorn because she just, I think to a little bit of what Sal said, she just comes across as almost otherworldly, which is
Mhm.
in a way doing her a disservice because there's nothing otherworldly about her. Like she's all woman. And even when you look at like her old interviews, when you look at her movies, she's just always like head held high and just basically just doing whatever she will. It's basically like you can't tame her. And you can't tame her in the movies, you can't tame her off screen. You can write all kinds of like nasty shit about her in the tabloids, as the tabloids have done. And she was very, very vilified for a very, very long time. But she's still like, yeah, that's fine. You can say whatever you want, but like, I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And she always did that with like a smile on her face. It was very like, there's that serenity I associate with her as well. And I really, really do love the avenging angel flavor of Rekha. It is my favorite when she wears her riding boots and she has her whip and she's just like cracking it and she's like, obey. I love that. Okay, so Sal, tell us a little bit about why you chose Khubsurat.
So Khubsoorat is one of Rekha's most charming films. It is a Rishikesh Mukherjee film, which is Rishikesh Mukherjee is one of the most beloved directors in Bollywood cinema. So for her to work with him, was this kind of lovely moment, right? Like to have this actress who for a long time had been treated as this kind of disreputable sex symbol. And you have to remember that Rekha came into the industry as a teenager. So yeah, for her to be seen as as this kind of wild sexual subject with agency, um, is so is so disturbing to me. Like she, the first big kind of story that broke about her was when she was shooting Solva Savan, and her hero Bishwajit forced a kiss on her, right? And so this is how the mythos of Rekha started forming. She was unruly, she was sexual, she was scandalous. There was a whiff of scandal around her. And for her to do a film, not just to do a film, but to headline a film by that most wholesome of directors, Rishikesh Mukherjee, by the director whose films, were redolent of, desi ghee and, those genuine values of like love and family and just
Comfort.
yeah, comfort. And I think a genuine sense of fun within the family unit. Like, I think not that kind of the self-serious kind of, sanskar kind of vibe. It was more like we're having a good time here. It's fun to be alive. It's fun to be loved. It's fun to be with your parents and with your children. And for her to headline a film like that, I mean, this was her Sound of Music in a lot of ways. The film is in that space, it's in that niche, and in a lot of ways, I love it more than the Sound of Music. Which is my bias probably because I watched it before that. We had it on VHS, and I used to watch it again and again. And she is just so endlessly charming in it. Just so endlessly charming in it and beautiful. She has like the chicest little outfits, immediately, you see her as someone, she's different from everyone else because she's a grown-up woman, but she's wearing Western clothes. And
Pigtails.
yeah, she has pigtails. She has her long Rekha hair, but she's wearing these chic little t-shirts and skirts and, pants. And she's just wonderful to look at. She's full of joie de vivre. I think she's just shy of 30 when she's made this film. And she's woman, she's girl, she's delightful, she's alive, and it's just wonderful to see this young woman who'd really she'd been through everything. Now we know that she didn't want to be in the movies. She'd been forced into the movies, and she'd been through all of these hard times, and she'd been put through really bad press. And for her to have this kind of moment post Ghar, to be headlining a movie like this, it's kind of wonderful. So I really kind of wanted to celebrate a movie that celebrates Rekha,
Yeah.
movie that's celebratory of her and that's joyful. That's joyful Rekha,
Yeah.
because Rekha is someone who is very fun. If you watch her, this is like a seminal piece of, I think, Indian film journalism, Indian pop culture. Her interview with Simi Garewal. This is incredible. This is like, I would say, like an incredible piece of Rekha text. But if you watch it, she's really fun.
Yeah.
you watch the outtakes, she will do baby voices, she will do animal voices, she will make the silliest jokes, she will, make sexual innuendo puns. She is the most fun person. And this comes through in Khubsoorat in a way that you don't always see it come through. Because she's often either playing, the long-suffering courtesan. That is the Rekha archetype, right? The
Yeah.
courtesan, capital C courtesan. That's whom
Yeah.
we associate her with. The yearning, the woman who yearns, the woman who longs, and that is also informed by her off-screen life in a big way. I guess we'll come to that at one point, but that's whom we think of. But that's not the only thing Rekha was. Rekha was an imp. Rekha was a delight. She used to play practical jokes on the media. She was a friend of all her female co-stars. And I feel like Khoobsurat really captures that side of her, and I wanted to really celebrate that.
Can
I was
ask a-
actually, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, you mentioned her being a friend to her co-stars, her female co-stars. And one of the things I like about Rekha is I feel like she is a very good co-star, especially with other women. And this is more of a feeling I have than something I can really point at specific things. But Salim, or either of you really is that something that stands out to you about her?
Oh yeah, absolutely. First of all, like she's had friendships that have lasted with her co-stars. I think there's a story about when Sridevi came into Bollywood. Um, you know, she helped her out with her makeup and clothes and things like that. And then they had a rift for various reasons, and that's gossip. But she was friends with Neetu Singh. She was friends with Hema. She was
Her
friends with
best friend is Hema, actually.
yeah, they've stayed friends. She's friends with Shivana, with all of these girls. And you'll still see them together, at awards shows. And they all have that like attitude towards Rekha that's reserved for Rekha. Like that's Rekha. Rekha does Rekha things. Rekha will come.
Aishwarya has it too.
Yeah, like Aishwarya calls Rekha Ma, right? So
Yeah.
like these even the women of these younger generations love Rekha. There
Yeah.
is that there's still that honor where if you're an actress and you're winning your film fare, to get it from Rekha
Yeah.
is a
Mm.
big deal. You
Yeah.
know, to get that film fare for the best actress from Rekha, that is a moment. You've
Yeah.
arrived. And she loves on all of these women. For her,
Mm.
it's not a thing where she's like, people associate Rekha with that eternal agelessness and all of those things, but she's not afraid of standing next to a younger
Yeah.
woman and celebrating her. She's always pulled those women next to her.
Mm.
There's that infamous shoot with Kajol that she actually art directed and styled. She's ready to have like young women next to her and to celebrate them and to say, look at her. She's hot. She's beautiful. She's ready to call them her daughter. She's great that way. And that comes through on screen. She's a very, very generous co-star. In the 80s were a big, the 70s and 80s were a big period for multi-starrers. Most films, or a great number of films, had multiple heroes, multiple heroines, and she had a great chemistry, with an ensemble.
Mm.
She'd always fit in, even as she stole scenes, even as she added that inimitable Rekha pop and fizz to movies. It never felt like she was trying to steal a scene from someone. It always felt like she was acting with them, as opposed to acting at the
Mm.
audience, away from everyone else. And you see this in Khubsoorat because Khubsoorat is a big ensemble
Yeah.
with very senior actors. It has
Deena Pathak, wow.
Look, who's like a legend of the stage, I think especially of the Gujarati stage. And then you have Ashok Kumar, like a lion of Hindi cinema, right? And you have all these younger actors. You have Shashikala, you have one of her most frequent co-stars, the director who also renewed her career, like I think about 6 years down the line, Rakesh Roshan. It's like a big cast. And she has a very different chemistry with each actor.
Mhm.
She has scenes with all of them, and she plays with each of them uh, in a way that works and and is an individual dynamic, and that's so rare because stars don't always do that. Stars are often about themselves and about perpetuating their star persona, and oftentimes that means kind of ignoring um, the energy or the specific dynamic they can generate with the actors that they have around them, the character actors, the ensemble. And Rekha has never been like that.
It's like a snobbery.
Yeah, it's a solipsism, I think.
Mhm.
Star actors often will tend to act in a bubble, and Rekha is not like that. Rekha, as you
Yeah.
pointed out, she's warm, she's alive. She's alive to the presence of people around her, both on and off screen.
Right.
Even as she is this mysterious diva, people call her Garbo-esque all the time.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's true of Ricardo. I think she's
Yeah.
serious. I think she's enigmatic, but I don't think she's someone who's who's isolated herself on
No.
screen or even off screen when she's come and interacted with the world. She's has a warmth and and an approachability to her when she
I
has come into the world.
I was telling Beth I love watching Rekha's paparazzi videos because, like, you see her at the airport and all these paps are like, Rekha ji, Rekha ji, Rekha ji, Rekha ji. And she'll like make baby voices, or she'll be so cute, or she'll just be like, I have to catch my plane. I can't talk to you right now. Bye. And she'll take, it's like, she's so like charming and cute. Like, I'm just like, no, but I want, like, hang out with me though. So adorable. But okay, so Beth, tell us about your batshit crazy movie that you chose, which, by the way, when I told my husband, he was so proud of you. He was like, only Beth.
So you know, I love Rekha's kind of agent of chaos thing that she does. And I mean, we've already talked about Poonbari Mong at length on this podcast, but we can't not mention it here. And if we hadn't already done an episode on it, I would have, I think, brought that one. But this, like you were saying, kind of Avenger, crime boss, Madam X. And the only reason I'm not talking about Madam X is because I can't find it with subtitles, and I feel like I need to really truly experience it. But I don't is there anyone else who kind of who does those roles, or who was offered those roles? I don't know, but I just absolutely
Dimple a little bit.
a little bit, yeah. And it's sort of like I think there's a film where Rekha is a police officer's wife, and then he's killed, and then she becomes an officer to avenge him, and things like I think there's a film like that with Rajnikant, maybe.
Rajnikant,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, so like avenging Rajnikant, like that's not nothing. So I love this sort of divine, powerful, often bananas, again, outside of what a heroine or even a villain is really supposed to be. And so this is why and there's kind of this, to me, there's really the trifecta of Poonbari Mong and this one and Madam X, and there's probably others that I haven't even seen yet, but so I had to bring that. And obviously the song with her and Aki, like with the food and the mud, and I've watched that song so many times. I had not seen it before I watched the whole film because I wanted to hold it to be in the film the way it would have been seen. And I remember when I wrote about it on my blog, I was like, look, there's a point in your Hindi cinema viewing journey that you can't go back from, and you've either seen this song or you have not. And once you've seen it, like, it's just a wonder that this exists, and that they were both willing to do it. I give him some credit for it too, right? But like, why is this song such a big deal? But it also is such a big deal. And like, who other than the serene yet deeply amazing actor that is Rekha, who clearly will do things that other people won't, that is not going to listen to certain kinds of criticism or let it stop her. It's just an absolute masterpiece of a persona. And it makes sense in the film too. Like, let's not take it away from the context that it has, but like this movie to me is just such an amazing example of kind of not giving any F's and just doing what you want. And maybe I don't mean to sell her short with that. I don't mean to say that it's not calculated, because maybe it is. I don't mean to say that it doesn't speak to her as a performer, because I suspect that it does, because it is such an interesting role. But this kind of agent of chaos, Rekha, or agent of what is it? It's not villainy, but it's some sort of, bad girls need love too, right? And she just naughty girls need love too, and she just does it. And she is, again, woman in this film. Like this I like girlish Rekha as well, but this sort of woman Rekha especially speaks to me the older I get. I just love her for it. And it looks like both of you have things to say about this movie, and I hope that you will.
So as you were saying, I think like one of the reasons, she's so go for broke in this, she made a few movies that were like pretty controversial in this time period. She made Khiladiyon Ka Khiladi with the song, which is like, I mean, that song is just, it remains like there, like it remains wild to this day.
That's right. Watching it the other day, I like, this would not be made now.
Yeah. It is unhinged.
First of all, who would agree to do it? No one would even agree to do it.
It is an expression of like an unhinged sexual id, like I cannot even begin to wrap my mind around the psychosexual kind of thrust of like a person who would conceive of like each set piece in that song, like, when they're like mud wrestling and they're in the pool and they're thrashing around, and the swimming pool, like with the pool house where it's like implied nudity and all of it. And the other thing, I have to mention this about Khiladiyon Ka Khiladi, her costumes, because Rekha has worn some really nutty things that are fun to look at, really over the top kind of glam, lizard empress from outer space things, in Khun Bhari Mang and Madam X and Gitanjali and all of these films, like kind of like very over the top, wonderful, glamorous, kind of like drag queen. But in Khiladiyon Ka Khiladi, she is so chic, she has these gorgeous, like Donna Karan inspired outfits, like these beautiful drapey kind of like sets that she's wearing, the skirts, the embellished blouses, the matching hats, even the wigs are like kind of like very sleek, these outfits have to be seen to believe. I still think this is one of the chicest characters in cinema. Like, there is such amazing synergy between what the costume designer, which honestly is probably Rekha, because only after a certain point, only Rekha had any say in what Rekha wore. So like, in what she achieved with her look and what they were trying to go for with the character. And Rekha was someone who was very much an expert at doing that outside-in thing with characters, like the cues that costume and makeup provided. She used them really, really effectively to set the tone of a character. But the thing is, one of the reasons that it was that she went for broke in these films is that Rekha was almost like an industry pariah at that point, because of, her husband's suicide. People blamed her for it. People were calling her a black widow, all of these things. She'd had some pretty major flops. People were not going and watching her films. There was that kind of, the stench of controversy around her. And this time it wasn't like prurient controversy. It was more like really kind of dark stuff. And it was easier to think of her as disposable in her 40s than it had been earlier. We would at this point, we had Sridevi Madhuri. We were in an entire. We were at the point where we had Kajol and
Yeah.
Karishma and Ravina. We were in a whole new generation of ingenues, one of whom she was up against in the movie. So for her, I think at this point she knew she had to do something that no one expected, that no one had seen in Hindi films. And I think that's what she did with this film.
Mm.
That's what she did with Astha, which was, I think, very much inspired by, French New Wave narratives.
Mhm.
And that's what she did with Kama Sutra, you know.
Mm.
I think she made some really gutsy choices in that period because she knew she had to if she wanted to have any kind of longevity. And she did. I think she really wanted to have a career. She wanted to keep working.
I think she really like reinvented herself with those, because it's like you can like them, you can like those movies or you can hate them, but you can't ignore them. Everybody knows these movies. Like even if you've seen them, not seen them, and everyone has an opinion on them, and everyone has an opinion about whether Rekha should have done them, not them. There was just so much chatter, and there's still so much chatter about those film choices that she made, that I think that was so smart, because it's better to be spoken about in the film industry and among your audience rather than just to be irrelevant. That's one thing she didn't want to be. So I have a funny story about this song from Khiladiyon Ka Khiladi. So a few years ago, my husband and I and his cousins, we'd gone to Niagara Falls. And if you've been to the Niagara Falls, like US side, you know that there's nothing there. It's like I got there and I was like, what is this? It's like this like terrible place except for the falls themselves. And so we would eat breakfast every morning in this Punjabi dhaba. They have great Punjabi food in Niagara Falls because there's like a lot of Punjabi like authentic restaurants over there. So we would like fuel up in the morning with parathas, and it was like 7:30 in the morning, and all these like traditional Punjabi people, like the waiter and the cashier and the cook, everyone is like from the family. And at 7:30 in the morning they would basically play gurbani. So on the little TV that they had, they would have like a live stream from like Amritsar, and it's like the gurbani and it's like ek onkar and all of that, and it's like, okay, very nice, pious, and you're like eating your aloo paratha and listening to gurbani, very nice. And then I think the son, who was also like the waiter, he would get bored. He did this 2 days in a row. He would change the channel, and then he would like fiddle around with the remote, and then he would put on these Bollywood songs. So the first day it was the amount of cognitive dissonance we had. Like it's like ek omkar and very peaceful and lovely, and then suddenly at night, no control. And literally everybody sat up. My husband, me, the cousin's wife, the 7-year-old, everybody was like, what is going on? And like, it's 7:45 and Rekha is like rolling in the mud and all these things were happening. And 5 seconds ago, it was a live stream from Amritsar. It is amazing. And like, nobody was eating. And the 7-year-old was like, just like transfixed. I was like, welcome to the world of Rekha, 7-year-old.
No, I'm obsessed with this. I was talking to Beth about like today being, it's like it's Pride in Illinois, and Rekha really, we're really establishing that Rekha does not care for the kink at Pride discourse. Rekha said, "Kink, Pride, love it both."
Yeah. Have your breakfast with it.
Rekha's with it.
I mean, you've been
said
talking.
kink. Huh?
You've been talking about Rekha as mother, and I feel like, I mean, I think this is a good place to talk about her as a queer icon, because even as someone who did not, remotely grow up knowing that, the first couple of times I saw her, I was like, she has to be, right? Like she just exudes something. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I think even in Khubsoorat, I think you see her playing with gender in a really fun way. And I think there's this interesting thing, people talk about how Amitabh Bachchan was this kind of Svengali figure to her, really worked on her pushed her to work on her diction and her acting. And, that's once she started when she fell in with him, she started taking things seriously and all of that stuff, which is, I mean, if you think about the fact that this was a woman in her late teens, early 20s, and this was a married man who was much older. That dynamic feels a lot less, I think, like um, just kind of like scandalous in a fun, gossipy way now, and takes on a more like a sinister aspect now that one thinks about it. But I think an interesting thing about Rekha as a performer, though, is that you do see echoes of Amitabh in her acting. In the way she delivers dialogue, especially. And this gives her performances such a delicious androgyny. You know,
Mm.
she takes up space like a hero. She doesn't simper. She never cowers, she never simpers. Even when she is playing the damsel in distress, which every heroine had to. These girls were doing 16, 17, 18 films a year, and in 10 of those films, they were probably, playing women who were being, Shakti Kapoor was grabbing them and taking them back, and then Jitendra or Dharmendra was showing up, and due to like there was probably these films were probably interchangeable, and then there were 3 or 4 good ones. But she never felt, coy. She never felt fragile, right?
Mm.
Uh, and I think there was that kind of there was a swagger to Rekha, and you see it in Khubsoorat. She has this one song that she's in drag, and it's amazing. She's kind of doing like a play in the movie, where she's like narrating this story about like a king, and she's talking about her rules are bad and how like that joyous anarchy is good, and it's great stuff. But even in that, you start seeing that like gender play that's just a lot of fun, right? And then we can flash forward to Peter, what you were talking about, that unforgettable imagery of Rekha in the riding boots with the whip, right?
Mhm.
This is iconography. This is part of uh, Bollywood imagery that I think it's just instantly recognizable, right? And even there, that to me, it's like if you draw a line from Mother India to Khoon Bhari Maang, you see that um, there is that evolution where there isn't a need to foreground the motherness, the Indianness. She's just pure rage and vengeance. She's in there all black with the whip. She is not trying to feminize herself in some
Mhm.
way. I often compare Rekha to Joan Crawford, because like Crawford, she's had many different iterations. Like Crawford, she's a survivor. Like Crawford, she's a figure who's been greatly misunderstood. She's a queer icon. She's survived. She's a survivor. She's someone who's beloved for her looks, her makeup, her glamour, all of that stuff. But that image reminds me of Crawford in Nicholas Ray's Johnny Guitar, which is a Western. And you have that similar image of Crawford in kind of like a Western gear. And Rekha, I think, really understood the power of iconography. And then, of course, from then onward, Rekha really becomes camp. The camp era of Rekha begins from there, from Khoon Bhari Maang, where she has a model off in the film. Like, come on, what's gayer than a model off? You know, that is the gayest thing that you can do, right? And then there's the yearning, there's the longing, there's Umrao Jan, there's
Mm.
Zuhra,
Yes.
we always talk about there's this thing about yearning being the queerest emotion.
Ah,
And she absolutely embodies that. Rekha is not about gratification. Rekha is about yearning, you know.
that's
Um,
so well said.
yeah,
Yeah.
Rekha makes it clear that she's not about fulfillment. Rekha is about aspiration,
Mm.
you know, whether it is for some impossible ideal of beauty or agelessness or an eternal kind of stardom or love. She's been, people talk about all this stuff with Amitabh Bachchan, but I think the thing that people miss is that Rekha has been very strategic and savvy in using all of that stuff, all of that scandal to inform and burnish her mythos,
Mm.
you know. And that too, to have that kind of awareness of, controversy and to really kind of give the audience what they want with all of that stuff, that is like you know, classic queer icon stuff, like she really plays to the audience. I feel like if Rekha could have like Barbara and Bette Midler gone into like bathhouses and gay clubs and like played for those audiences, she would have. I think she would have enjoyed that so much. She would have
Mm.
enjoyed going into those audiences and going into those places and talking with those audiences so much.
But you know what you're reminding me of, Sal? That song from Jambaz. Ek to kam zindagani.
Yes, yes. I mean that, like all the fetish wear around her,
Yeah.
like the men in the jock straps and like
Yeah.
all again, like I think like the 80s and 90s, you had this kind of like creeping in of like kink into Bollywood films that like echoed a similar kind of, the erotic thriller was a big thing in Hollywood.
Mm. Yeah.
Adrian Lyne, Paul Verhoeven, and all of that was happening here. And you saw that happening, an echo of that happening in Bollywood. And because in Bollywood, things kind of manifest in a way that is kind of unpredictable. Those influences are synthesized with Bollywood influences and then come out in this completely unexpected way. You have Rekha singing Pyar Do Pyar Lo, which is this really kind of melodic Kalyanji Anandji number, I think.
Yeah.
And then you have like men in like leather jock straps
Yeah.
around her, like thrusting, you
Yeah.
know. And it is so gay,
Yeah.
And then Kama Sutra, uh, again, like she's talking about like sex positions and all of
Yeah.
that. Like she's just someone who has all of that, like all of that lore,
Mm.
like no one else has an understanding of her own place in
Mm.
camp, right? I think Bollywood is such an interesting industry because there it is a space that generates so much camp, but
Mm.
the people in it don't necessarily think of themselves as um, you know informed by camp, which is very interesting because
Yeah.
the cinema, the iconography is very queer, but it is a very hetero space because it's dominated by male stars, by male directors, by male producers and their point of view. So the camp is never really examined or
Mm.
celebrated, but Rekha is where it is celebrated, where she celebrates it, where she says, "This is fabulous," where she does that Parinita cabaret
Yeah.
number where she sits,
Yes.
she comes and sits on the lap of an ex-lover,
Yeah.
Sanjay Dutt, who once apparently said in a magazine that every part of Rekha is made for love. And this after, in a previous decade, his mother said that that girl that girl has not been raised right. Very wrong with that girl. Like she shocked Nargis to that extent, because I think there were rumors about her and Sunil Dutt, with whom she'd done Jani,
Mm.
she'd done Nagin. And then 10 years later, of course, Rekha would be linked with both father and son, because that's the kind of thing that happens only to Rekha. And then 20 years later, she does this like item number with him, because only Rekha would do an item number in her 50s, you know? So like that is so, she understands the power of camp,
Mm.
because even if she wouldn't call it that, because I think she's invented her own strain of it. You
Mm.
know, she's an author of camp.
Mm.
She's not just regurgitating it, she authors it. So I think in all of those ways, she's a queer icon.
Mm.
Mhm. We need a Rekha autobiography like stat. I need one right now. We need it for our book club episode. So,
Mm.
playing off of what you were saying about her being a survivor, the movie that I'm going to talk about is actually not as fun. Sorry, guys. After discussing Khiladiyon ka Khiladi and Jambaz and
I was like,
you
I really
know,
should go last here, but you know.
but so the movie I'm going to talk about is Ghar, and wow, she survives, and how in that movie I had never seen Ghar because I tend to avoid movies that I think are going to like drag me down and depress me, make me sad. Um, but I knew I wanted to see Ghar at some point, and I was like, this is a great opportunity to finally watch it, and it is such a powerful movie. I wish it was made better because I don't. Have you guys seen Ghar? Either of you? Okay, so the editing of this movie is very poor and the direction is all over the place. So I don't know what was going on with the director, but all I can say is that, first of all, the story is amazing. So Rekha and Vinod Mehra play a newly married couple. They go late night to watch this movie, and on the way back, they are attacked by these hoodlums, and then Vinod Mehra has like a concussion or something, and they gang rape Rekha. And then the next morning, when Vinod Mehra wakes up in a hospital bed and he's like, "Where's my wife?" And like, "Is she okay? What happened to her?" He has no idea because he was concussed. And he's basically told that she is recovering from her injuries, but she's basically been raped. And the movie, it's like the beginnings of the movie are very idyllic, newly married couple, honeymooning, and all these beautiful songs, like gorgeous soundtrack, Aajkal Pao Zami Par Nahi Rehte Mere, and Tere Bina Jiya Jaye Na, which is so cute. Like Rekha's waiting for Vinod Mehra to come home, and you feel like she's playing solitaire on a coffee table, but she's not. She's actually just looking at like little Polaroid shots and stuff. It's so cute. And she's just like waiting for him to come home. Beautiful soundtrack, and the chemistry between her and Vinod Mehra, fire chemistry, so good. And then you go from this like newlywed, happy, chirpy, bubbly, cute Rekha who dresses up every day for her man, and then you have like this victim of this horrific crime who is trying to come to terms with it. And I really have to give her credit because I do not think anyone else could do that role. Just all the emotions that she goes through, and she takes you through like the trauma, the shock, the humiliation, the anger, the sadness, the feeling of how could this happen to me? And even the way that their marriage starts breaking down. And I there were so many points during this movie that I was worried that the director was going to make some terrible thing about like Izzat and all that crap. And I was afraid that Vinod Mehra was going to show his true colors and just be this horrible chauvinistic person. But no, it's actually really well done. There's so many scenes where Rekha is convinced that Vinod Mehra doesn't love her anymore, or he's not going to want to be with her anymore because of the gang rape that happened. And every step of the way, Vinod Mehra is like, no, I love you. I value you. It wasn't your fault. It was never your fault. And we're going to make it happen. There's even a scene where she is talking with her friend. I think it's Padma Khanna, who's her friend, but she's their like common friend of hers and Vinod Mehra's, and she's actually Vinod Mehra's coworker. And there's a scene where she actually says to her something to the effect of, I don't remember the exact words, but something to the effect of, I don't know how to have sex anymore. And there's a scene where they're in bed, and it's been it's been some time since the rape, and things seem like they're going okay between them, and she still continues to have some nightmares, but it seems like she's on the road to recovery, perhaps. And they're sort of getting romantic, and they're getting cozy on the bed, and then Vinod Mehra just like kisses her, and she freezes, and she's just like, I can't, and she just freezes, and it's such a heartbreaking moment. But I just really want to give kudos for, first of all, whoever came up with this idea of the story, where they were like, let's make a movie on this story, because you really got to handle it with so much care and make sure that you do justice to such a difficult topic. And secondly, kudos to Rekha for doing the role, and spectacular performance. Her breakdowns at home, her breakdowns in the hospital, you're just really rooting for this girl. You just want her to survive, and you also are rooting for their marriage to survive, because it's just, how much it means to her, and these two people are in love. It's just this heinous thing that happened to them, and it does have a happy ending. It's a beautiful ending. She's decided she doesn't want to live with him anymore, and it's not because of him. She just doesn't know what to do with herself. And he's like, okay, if you want to leave, you can leave. He obviously does not want her to. The audience does not want her to, but we're like, okay, if this is what you need, if you need a time, that's fine. And then in the last scene, he comes home and she's not at home, and he's like, oh my God, I think she's gone to the train station. And the last scene is so gratifying. It's Vinod Mehra on the platform looking at all the trains, waiting, like, which train has she gotten into? And he doesn't see her, and the train leaves, and he turns back, and he's so sad. And then, of course, it's a Bollywood movie, so she's on a bench, she's sitting on a train bench, and she has her suitcase next to her, and then he sees her, and they run to each other and hug, and it's like, it's so cute, you guys. It is a difficult movie to watch. I would not recommend this as like a comfort watch at all, but it's a great, wonderful Rekha performance, and I can see why Ghar was the movie that she chose, because I did read that Rekha wanted to explore more complex characters, because she didn't want to stagnate. She didn't want to keep doing the same stuff over and over again, and so that's it was a conscious choice for her to do a movie like Ghar, which is kind of like art cinema, and really good movie, except for the dodgy editing and direction. But yeah.
Yeah, so a couple of things with the direction, and I know this because of like the nerdiest reason ever. When I was a child, I used to collect, children collect sensible things like, rocks and video games and Pokemon cards. I used to collect film magazines, and so at like 6 and 7, I was like reading film fairs, so which explains so much about me, of course. But Gulzar used to do a column for Filmfare when I was very little. So this was back in the day when Filmfare was like an actual magazine, and used to have like all this really good retrospective stuff. And Gulzar used to do a column about the films he'd made, the films he'd written, or the films he'd written for, like songs for. And he'd written the songs for Ghar, which of
Yes.
course, if you hear the songs, it's instantly you can
Yeah.
tell because of all the synesthesia. So Gulzar is known for all the synesthesia in his lyrics, and the Ghar OST, the Ghar songs are full of all that stuff. The eyes are listening, the ears can see, things like that are all over the songs. But what had happened was, I think the director had either fallen ill or met with an accident, and that had meant that I think Gulzar had to like ghost direct like large schedules of the film. So I think that might explain like the kind of uneven quality of the film. This also, of course, famously happened with Chameli, where the original director Anand Pilani died, and then Sudhir Mishra had to step in and direct it. And again, you can see
Duplicate also, right?
with
Because Mahesh
Duplicate,
Bhatt like abandoned the film or
he just
whatever.
had left. He just wouldn't show up on set. Which is actually, that is fun because everyone is like, oh my God, Alia Bhatt Nepo kid.
Yeah.
But the fun thing is, it's surprising that Karan Johar launched Alia Bhatt because he could not stand her father because her father lost his father so much money. But
Yeah.
but that aside, I think that also explains
Okay.
the kind of unevenness in quality because Gulzar is a very fine filmmaker.
Yeah.
Um, but I think
Yeah, I
Manik,
was wondering because that movie is so strangely made. Like there's entire passages in the film. Like all the Rekha parts of it are so great and directed so well. And so there's parts of it where you're like, this is awesome. And then there's parts like literally there's like 20 minutes. Beth will appreciate this, or rather not appreciate this. There are 20 minutes of comedy uncles. Beth, why do you even need comedy uncles in this? Like literally, there's a whole thing about who is that actor? Asrani. Asrani is like a police officer. He's like a bumbling police officer. It has nothing to do with the case. It has nothing to do with the gang rape or anything. It's like 20 minutes of just Asrani being weird. And I'm like, why? Why do you need that in this movie? So it's such a strange film. I actually said to my husband, I think someone was on drugs when they
yeah,
made this
I
movie.
think because some of it feels like a Gulzar film.
Yeah.
Gulzar, of course, had comedy in his films.
Yeah.
Asrani was an actor who showed up in his films as well, but in a very integrated way.
Yeah.
Yeah, he never did like the subplot, where
Right.
Asrani or Kadir Khan was flirting with Aruna
Yeah.
Irani. He never had that. It was integrated.
Yeah.
And but like obviously this wasn't or actually a Gulzar film, So texturally, tonally, there was that unevenness. And then I
Okay.
think the friend I think was Prema Narayan. And
Huh. Yes, yes, yes. Prema Narayan. Sorry, not
who,
Padma Khanna.
who happens to be or who happened to be like one of the princesses of Kuch Bihar or something like this. I might be
Really?
yeah, so sort of like a fun precursor to Aditi Rao Hydari, uh, like an early royal in the industry. So that's a
The amount of random royals in the film industry always like blows my mind. Okay, first of all, there were so many like royal families. Like Parveen Babi was from the royal family of Jamnagar. And then Chandrachud Singh is apparently some sort of prince. I was like, really?
yeah, it's wild, it's wild. But yeah, so I think that's another thing, and of course, it's worth mentioning that Vinod Mehra and Rekha were pretty seriously romantically involved.
Yeah, I don't think that was acting in the
Yeah, so
movie.
I
All
think
of those lovelorn longing looks. I don't think Vinod Mehra is that good an actor.
yeah,
I think it's all real.
I have a real soft spot for Vinod Mehra.
Me
Beth
too.
also.
Me too.
I think young Vinod Mehra was one of the prettiest men. Like those eyes are just lovely.
Yeah.
His
I
smile.
his smile
Yeah.
is he was always a really lovely foil to
Mm.
his heroines. I think
Hmm.
he always conveyed a sense of like innate decency
Yes.
and gentleness in a time in an era where heroes didn't always like you had Jitendra who always felt kind of easy, you know. You had
Wait,
other
did you say lazy or crazy? Because I feel like crazy applies, but lazy no.
I sleazy. I think like
Oh,
Jitendra
sleazy.
yeah, another one of Rekha's, ex-paramours. But he felt very sleazy and he did a bunch of films with Rekha in the 80s. And then, Amitabh, Dharmendra, Vinod Khanna, they were all very macho, right? But I think Vinod Mehra had this sweetness and gentleness to him that really was kind of lovely. And here he's young and fresh and kind of live and just beautiful. And you see him in another film that he did with Rekha, I think 10, 12 years down the line, where Rekha is still like gorgeous. She's still youthful and gorgeous, but he's, aged drastically.
Mm.
Because I think he'd had health issues and things like that. And you see that life has taken a toll on him, and he's been through it. I think it's a film that Sawan Kumar Tak, who's a frequent Rekha collaborator,
Yes.
and made the film that I persist in believing Mamma Mia was copied from Mother.
Oh, I've seen
It was
Mother.
actually called
Oh dear.
Mother. Mother, he made Mother with her in the late 90s. But yeah, so he made this film with her that, like, I think bookended their kind of collaboration together. But yeah, they were in love. And I think this movie is kind of such a sweet, touching testament to that because they clearly stayed on good terms. And
Mhm.
Rekha stayed on good terms with a lot of, she was kind of infamous for having all of these boyfriends and for getting around, but she stayed on good terms with these men, so I love that about her because
Yeah.
I love that she was a good time. She was the kind of girl you wanted to just keep having in your life,
Mm.
but yeah, with the movie, you really, that tenderness really kind of comes through, and that's a Gulzar trademark. I know,
Yeah.
Mhm.
I know, Beth is not a fan of Ijazat, if I remember
That
correctly.
is correct.
But that's another
But
beautiful,
I am. I love it, Sal.
yeah,
I'm
but
with
that's
you.
another beautiful Gulzar directed Rekha performance. And Gulzar, I think, was someone who really, really understood Rekha as an actress. And
Mhm.
Ghar was the film that established her as a serious actress. That was the film where I think she pursued it. She really wanted it.
Mm.
And that was the film where people were like, oh, oh, she can act. You
Mm.
Yeah.
She's not just the girl you put, in a tight dress to, like, dance on the sidelines. She's not just the flower pot, as they used to call it.
Yeah.
She's
Yeah.
she's an actress.
Yeah.
Uh, as,
I
as Karina so famously said, if there's any act in actress, Rekha put it in there for in her.
there's
Wow.
actually in one of the songs, I love that. I think it's so the line goes, लोग कहते हैं कि बस हाथ की रेखा है. I love that Gulzar like put that in there because like it refers to her actually. It's so cute. But I would recommend to our listeners like or watchers, even if you don't necessarily want to see Ghar because it does have all of these like unevenness issues, at least watch the song videos on YouTube
Mm.
because just the chemistry between Rekha and Vinod Mehra is just like so good. They look so amazing together. And the songs, of course, are spectacular. So, you're in for a treat. So even if you don't want to watch the movie, at least watch the song videos. But if you do want to watch the movie, I have a few caveats, but it's still a great Rekha performance if you want to see how amazingly she acted.
I,
So,
sorry, Peter.
no, go ahead.
Was just gonna say, I think it's Ghar isn't exactly like situated in the parallel cinema movement, and
Mm.
even though Rekha was one of the first truly commercial actresses who did a bunch of work in the parallel cinema movement, including Kalyug, for instance, amazing, incredible
Yeah.
film. One of my favorite films, I'd say. Um,
Utsav also.
Yeah.
it's yeah, incredible. I think her collaborations with Shashi Kapoor as a
Mhm.
filmmaker have been terrific, terrific.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's also funny because he was someone who was mean about her in the press
Yeah.
in the 70s when
Was
people
he?
Yeah.
I
Yes, he
did not know
was.
this.
Yes,
Shashi
he
Kapoor,
was. I
why? What did
know.
he say
said,
about her?
she was dark and fat and things like that.
I know.
How
Her
dare
body
he?
line on Rekha in the 70s. Like the worst thing you could be as a 17-year-old girl who'd been forced into the movies and had no one taking care of you, and your superstar father pretending you didn't exist, was dark and fat, apparently.
I'm so
Yeah.
disappointed, you guys.
I know. It's
Like
hard to learn that, isn't it?
this is a very Et tu Brutus moment for me.
Oh, absolutely. So I think like this really says that, like, even the men that, even the people we love, right? I think were of their time in many ways. And that's just something that, people have, all our idols have feet of clay.
Yes.
Yeah, I think such a moment of triumph for Rekha to come back and be his muse, really.
I
Uh,
Yeah.
wonder what happened that and I'd love to think it's as much as he saw some performances and was like, oh, but I mean, I wonder
I
how
think
that
he
happened.
realized that she was
Yeah.
it. I think like after Ghar, the Ghar, Khubsoorat, Umrao Jan,
Yeah.
trifecta. I
Yeah.
think if you read the press from then, I think there's this amazing thing that like someone from America had come and done like a piece on Bollywood.
Mm.
And he'd met Rekha, and he was like, she's the most bewitching woman. She's so into fitness and she's witty and she reads, and like everyone was just mesmerized by her. Like, I think the transformation was also, I think that myth
Yeah.
of that ugly duckling to swan myth, I think was so fascinating to people. People were like, how did she do this?
Right.
She created herself. But I think the
Mm.
other thing about Ghar, and the reason the songs, I think at least people should look up, is that films of that kind of those middle of the road films that weren't like super mainstream, but
Yeah.
weren't like, like completely kind of like in that kind
Yeah.
of Bengali art house film zone. They had these really lovely, heartwarming sort of depictions of the young, upwardly mobile middle
Mm.
class,
Yeah.
how they lived,
Hmm.
them looking for houses, them setting up their homes,
Yeah.
intimacy,
Yeah.
that like, like young Indians kind of figuring out the grammar of existing in public
Yeah.
and private, her in her like sort of pajamas, sort of the kurta and lungi, all of those things, like little things, I think are very, very special because they really are a
Mm.
portal into a time when the country, as an independent country, was very young, but was coming into itself as a place where its people were saying, this is who we are, this is what we look like, this is how we act, in the cities,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I
There's all these like vignettes of them like taking taxis, and then there's like Vinod Mehra relaxing after dinner, like he has like a little scotch and he has like a cigarette and he's wearing those like silk, I don't know what they call it, it's like a kurta, but then he's wearing like a lungi, but I think it's like Punjabi, I don't think it's South Indian, but it's like this kurta lungi combo he wore in all his films with like all the buttons undone, and he's like smoking, and it's the videos are so good. It's very like gharelu,
Mm.
as and anyway the movie's called Ghar, but it's very like how do people act in the privacy and the confines of their own home, like how do they, there's like shots of like Rekha, like her hair is loose but now she's tying it up in a bun, and it's just loosely tying it. It's so lovely. Like people have to watch the song videos at least. Okay, do we have any closing thoughts on Rekha? Anything else we must get off our chest before we wrap up this episode? I know we can talk about her for 3 hours, but we can't, guys.
I feel like I've said everything that is most important to me, or both of you have said it, which is even better because there's just so much. Like you were saying, she is the entire shop and
She is.
there's
yeah,
something for
I think
everyone.
She's the goods.
she embodies, I think, like every I think every idea um of femininity, of feminist, in a way, to me, the ingenue, the courtesan, right? She's exalt, in that Madonna whore kind of
Yeah.
binary.
Big time.
I think I love her as someone who falls towards the in many different ways, professionally, the way, and the way society sees me and so on, towards the horse side of that binary. I think she's someone who took that part of it and exalted it. She made it something really glamorous and aspirational and powerful. She took that and made it a thing of agency, decade after decade after decade after decade. It breaks my heart that Rekha isn't really interested in like being an actress anymore. Like she
Yeah.
just wants to be Rekha. you know
Yeah.
we see her coming and being delightful on reality TV contests and things like that now. There's a great scene that I recommend people looking up where she's on Madhuri's dance judging show,
Mm.
where Madhuri and she recreate her scene from her showdown scene from Silsila with Jaya.
Yes.
Wow.
Excellent.
So good.
Also, Madhuri is definitely an actress inspired by Rekha. You hear it in the vocal kind of modulations and inflections. So seeing them both together, it's a treat. But yeah, like for me, one of the greatest cinematic regrets is that we didn't get to see Rekha's Miss Havisham. She was going to play her in Fitur.
Mhm.
And she shot for the film, and then she saw the footage and she didn't like how she looked, because Rekha exerts a lot of control over her costumes and makeup and so on. And it kind of breaks my heart that that's the part that, she's more concerned with. Although I completely understand it, because for older actresses, no one else is going to worry
Yeah.
about the good. But like, she is such a fantastic actress. She's such a fantastic actress. Even in like the Koi Mil Gaya films, she is, that role it's a nothing role, right? Like the
Yeah.
mother, the grandmother, but she imbues the part with such dignity and empathy and warmth. And she does that again and again and again. This is a woman who feels almost otherworldly in how in what a superstar she is, in what an enigmatic figure she is. But at the same time, when she's acting, she feels utterly human. She's a truly, truly incredible actress, while also being this bonkers, gonzo movie star, icon, while having this persona that embodies like everything that is fun and unhinged about being a movie star. But I just love her so much, and she means so much to me, and it means so much to me to be able to come and talk about her with y'all.
Yay! Well, we were excited, very happy that you came to chat with us about Rekha, because Beth and I love Rekha.
And like
And for us,
there isn't anyone else that I
no.
would have wanted to have this. No, because like Rekha has been key to Sal's and my relationship over the years. Like she's one of the reasons we bonded over on Twitter and things like that. So they're really, and I've never, for all that has been written and said about Rekha, I've never heard anyone talk about her the way that you do in this like massively smart and insightful way. Like, so, I do want to read the biography that's out there of her that was written in the last couple of years. I was actually just looking, my library does not have it. I'm sad, but I will get it. But this is a conversation that has been percolating for a long time and is just has the perfect person in it. So Rekha Ma herself has ordained this to happen.
Yes.
We propitiated in the right way. It has happened.
All hail Rekha Ma!
All hail Rekha Ma on this Pride Month and every day.
Yes. Maybe all swan around in golden kanjivarams with like 15 kilos of gold.
Yes. If not physically, at least in spirit.
Yes, for sure. All right. Well, that has been this episode of Filmi Ladies. We had so much fun recording it, in case you can't tell. And we hope you had fun as well. So tell us in the comments what your favorite Rekha movies are, what her favorite characters are. We'd love to hear from you. Tell us what flavor of Rekha is your favorite flavor. And we will see you next week on another episode. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Filmi Ladies. Thank you. Bye.